and welcome back to Biology Explained with Mr. Hill and to our very special short series on numeracy in biology. Over the course of these 4 mini episodes, we are exploring some of the numeracy skills that you need to use when completing your National 5 biology here in Scotland. But of course, these skills can be applied to any course, anywhere really, as numeracy is more or less the same in biology, wherever you are sitting your qualification. So if you find this interesting, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. And indeed, I'm very much looking forward to hosting the Season 2 for our Unit 2 National 5 Biology in the coming weeks. Now, in this episode, we are going to be exploring magnitude and units, looking at how we can convert millimeters to micrometers or meters to kilometers, and getting some practice in on making sure that our magnitudes are correct when we are changing units. So let's make a start. So magnitude and units then are something that we use all the time in science. And indeed, it's something that you use in your day-to-day life constantly. And it's all to do with how we communicate numbers and quantities of things in scales that are appropriate to the setting and for convenience in terms of communication. So for example, imagine you live, say, 20 kilometers away from school. Okay, it makes sense to use the scale kilometer because we're talking about quite long distances. And also the number 20 is a lot easier to communicate. Okay, you just write down 2 numbers. It's one word, 20, a lot easier to say. You wouldn't say to somebody that you lived 20,000 meters from school. Okay, it just feels a little bit extra because you're not measuring things on the meter scale. So it makes sense to use a larger unit. Also, writing out 20,000 every time, or saying the word 20,000, just is a lot more effort and a lot more than is needed. The same applies to when we talk about things that are very small. Okay, so for example, cells might typically be, say, 10 micrometers long. A micrometer is in a millionth of a meter. So if you were to communicate this in meters, you would have to be using lots of decimal points, 0.000001 meter. So the likelihood of you making a mistake when you're writing out that number is high. It also seems really quite silly to be able to say 0.000001 every single time you're communicating that with somebody. And so we use, instead of keeping those numbers really long, really big, we can simply use different units in order to convey the size of the object that we're talking about. And so we have standard units that we use in science and indeed across all of society, really, when we are communicating sizes of things. Okay, you use them all the time. You talk about meters, you use centimeters a lot, but centimeters is not going to be a standard scientific unit for reasons that I'll explain in a moment. In fact, you can see our standard units that we use in biology along the bottom there. Okay, and I've used meters as an example of what we're measuring. Okay, so we have our meters, which is our kind of standard unit. And then when you get smaller, you have millimeters, which are 1,000th of a meter. You then have micrometers, which have this this mu, this funny U letter. This is a Greek letter mu. This is micrometers. This is 1,000th of a millimeter, the one before it. And then if we're talking about even smaller things, we then use this unit here, nanometers. And nanometers are 1,000th of micrometers, which are 1,000ths of millimeters, which are 1,000th of meter. Okay. When we're going up, we use different units. Okay, we have a kilometer being 1,000 meters, and that's pretty much about as far as we want to go in terms of like large numbers. Okay, in biology, we're not going to be using too many large numbers, so we're going to stick to the smaller ones here. Okay, so to demonstrate this, we have a place number grid on the top of the screen here, starting with a million, then hundreds, tens, thousandths, hundreds, tens, units, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. Okay, you would have seen something like this in primary school, I'm sure, when you learn about place order of numbers. We're going to run a couple of examples just to show exactly how this might be used. So imagine you were measuring something that was, say, 2 meters long. Let's stick this in as 2 meters, so 2.0. And just for sake, let's make sure these are also 0 here. Okay, so let me copy across our meters here. So if we were measuring something and it was 2 meters long, if for whatever reason you wanted to convert that into millimeters, okay, so if we're going to go in this direction here, like so, then you're going to multiply your number by 1,000, okay, because there are 1,000 millimeters in a meter. Okay, so 2 meters becomes 2,000 millimeters. Okay, like so. Now, 2000 millimeters. If for whatever reason you wanted to convert this into micrometers, I mean, you probably wouldn't, but imagine if we were for a moment. Okay, so let's convert this now to a micrometer. We're going to be doing this calculation. So we're going to be doing millimeters here to micrometers. Again, we are going down 1 unit, so we're going to multiply by 1,000 because there are 1,000 micrometers in a millimeter. So 2,000 becomes 1, 2, 3, 2 million micrometers. Okay, so an object that's 2 meters long is 2 million micrometers long. Now, it would be silly for us to communicate something in micrometers when its actual length is on the meter scale, because again, you're going to be writing out loads of zeros. It seems a bit pointless. Okay, but this demonstrates how simply you can convert numbers. So imagine we go back to our meters now. We've still got 2 meters. Imagine we go back to our 2. Okay, so pop the meters back there. Okay, and I'm just going to leave the, going to just delete the numbers there. Okay, here we go. So let's delete these numbers and go back to 2 meters. We're going to go the other way just to show you what to do when you're going upwards. Okay, 2 meters. Imagine we were then wanted to convert 2 meters into kilometers. Okay, so instead of going down, we are going to be going up a unit. Okay, now there are 1,000 kilometers, 1,000 meters, excuse me, in a kilometer. Okay, which means we're going to have to divide our number by 1,000 this time. So 2 meters becomes 0.002 kilometers. Okay, because we are increasing the size of the units, so our number is going to go down. So remember, if you're going to go up a unit, we're going to divide our number by 1,000. And if you're going to go down a unit, then we are multiplying our number by 1,000. So now we've seen how you can convert your units going up or down and what you need to do to your numbers. Remember, if you're going down the next level of unit, you're going to be multiplying your number by 1,000. And if you're going to be going up to the next level of unit, then you're going to be dividing your number by 1,000. So with that in mind, we're now going to practice that with 3 questions on the grid on the screen. We have questions A, B, and C for partially completed rows. All I'd like you to do is to convert these units to get the correct numbers for each unit. Remember in our golden rules, which I put on the post-it notes here, so if you're going up a unit, you're dividing your number by 1,000. And if you're going down a unit, you multiply your number by 1,000. Okay, so pause the video, have a go, and then when you're ready, hit play, and we'll go through the answers. So how did you do? Let's now have a look at the correct answers to this question. So we'll start with question A, 4.5 kilometers. Imagine this was the distance between you and, say, a grocery store. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be having to make this into meters. So we're going down a unit. So we're going to multiply this number by 1,000. So 4.5 kilometers becomes 4,500 meters. Okay. Now we're going to check to see if this is correct with our next unit. We've been given the millimeters already. And so we're going down a unit once more. So we're going to multiply 4,500 by 1,000, which gives us 4.5 million. And you can see that's correct because we've got 3 extra zeros here at the end. So we know that our meters are correct. Next, we're going to convert this to micrometers. So again, you're going to times this by 1,000. So this becomes 4, 5, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3 zeros, and another 3 zeros. This becomes 4,500,000,000 micrometers in 4.5 kilometers. Finally, we're going to convert this to nanometers. We're going to be multiplying this by 1,000. And as you can see, the numbers are getting quite silly in size. So again, we're going to add 3 zeros to the end of this as we're multiplying by 1,000. So last one's 1, 2, 3. There we go. And so this becomes 4,500. Well, there's a lot of numbers there, isn't it? Lots of zeros, okay? So this is the correct conversion. You can see how silly it is to use the wrong units for the size of object that you are measuring, okay? It would be ludicrous to measure the distance between 2 buildings or 2 towns or 2 villages in nanometers because you're going to be writing loads of zeros. You're going to be having to count the zeros in order to then work out what number you have to say, okay? The chance of there being an error is really high, and it's just not appropriate because what you are measuring hasn't used the right, isn't at the right size for the unit that you have chosen. Okay, so it's important that you choose units that are easier to communicate and are appropriate. Okay, you don't want to have more than a few numbers that you're writing down, otherwise it gets quite silly. Okay, so we're going to apply that again, but going the other way in question B. So we have already 1,542 nanometers, which is converted to 1.542 micrometers. Okay, so they have divided that number by 1,000. To move this up to millimeters, we're going to divide this number again by 1,000. Okay, so we're going to, the answer to this will be 0.001542. Okay, now just for ease, I'm just going to put a space there between the 1 and the 5, just so you can see where every block of 1,000 goes as we are converting our units. Next, we're going to convert this millimeters to meters. So again, we're going to be dividing this by 1,000. So I'm going to add 3 zeros in after the decimal point. So 0.0000001,542 meters. Okay. Again, you can see how this is becoming quite silly using the wrong units. But as you say, the rules, we're going to be multiplying or dividing by 1,000 each time. And as we're going up, we are dividing. Last but not least, we're going to convert this to meters. So again, we're going to need to divide by 1,000 further. So we're going to add another 3 zeros after the decimal point. So 0.000000001,542. Okay. Again, as you can see, if we are measuring something on the micrometer scale, something that is that size, it will be inappropriate to use any other units, okay? Because it's getting to be really small numbers here. And we're going to be starting to get really big numbers below that. Okay, so it's important that you use the right unit. Right, last but not least, then we have question C. We've got to do a bit of both. So 65 meters then becomes 0.065 meters because we're dividing that by 1,000. Okay. Next, the 65 meters becomes 65,000 micrometers. So we're timesing that by 1,000. Okay. We've got times by 1,000 again, so we're going to add 3 more zeros to our number here. Becomes 65 million. Okay. And then finally, nanometers, we're going to times it by 1,000 one more time. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And that becomes 65,000 million nanometers. Again, a really silly number. It will be inappropriate to use that unit. Great. So I hope that has been useful for you. Remember the golden rules: multiplying by 1,000 when you're going down a unit, and dividing 1,000 when you're going up a unit. So there you have it. Nice and simple, really. If you are going to a larger unit, you just need to divide your number by 1,000. And if you're going to a smaller unit, you need to multiply your number by 1,000. So for example, if you were going from meters to kilometers, you divide it by 1,000. And if you're going from meters to millimeters, you would times your number by 1,000. I hope that was useful. Please do tune in to our next numeracy episode, and I hope to see you very soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.